Midge and where she might want to go with her fantastic career. So, again, for C-listers, before they accept any non-state employment, the C-list employee must notify the appropriate executive inspector general. So, a lot of our examples are going to be for agencies under the governor. So you're going to be trying to get that determination from the Office of the Executive Inspector General for the agencies to the governor. But, you know, it extends beyond those agencies. So this notification requirement to tell the OEIG that you want to accept non-state employment, you've got an offer, that requirement lasts while you are an employee and for 1 year after leaving state employment, regardless of where you want to work. You might want to go work for some totally unrelated employer, right? You've never had anything to do with them professionally. You're totally switching careers. Even if there's no risk you had personal or substantial involvement with that would-be employer, still have to notify the OEIG, you still have to get a determination. So once the OEIG gets notification that you want to accept this offer, they have to issue a written determination as to whether you can or can't accept within 10 calendar days of receiving notification. So we're going to talk about the timeline of how this works and sort of the outer bounds of when an employee has to submit notification and a request for a determination to the OEIG. So let's say we're going to fast forward like a week and say that it is May 1st, 2025. So there we are, the little, if you look on the timeline, there's that little Target logo looking thing. It's May 1st, 2025. Midge, our Department of Fun employee, quits today. So she still has an obligation to seek an OEIG determination before accepting non-state employment all the way until May 1st of 2026. So that's that year-long post-employment period where she still has to accept, or she still has to seek a determination from the OEIG before she accepts non-state employment. And then when the OEIG makes that determination, according to the Ethics Act, they're going to look back 1 year from the date Midge quit. So they're going to be looking back, that 1 year look back period is the yellow line. They're looking back from today, from May 1st, 2025, the day she quit, all the way back to May 1st, 2024. So they're going to be looking at her prospective employer, who she wants to go work for, and they're going to be looking for her personal and substantial involvement in certain decisions affecting that employer. And when they're looking at those decisions, they're looking all the way back to May 1st of 2024. So we illustrated it this way because, of course, the obligation to notify the OEIG also persists while you are employed, but we kind of use this quitting day so we could establish certain dates for, okay, here's the 1 year obligation period, and then here's that 1 year look back period. So we're going to talk about a couple different scenarios. Let's say that instead of being a water parks inspector, Midge is involved in administering fund grants to water parks. So in June of 2022, Midge was deeply involved in awarding and administering a grant to a prospective, let's say, Endless Summer Incorporated, which is like a water park conglomerate. For some reason, these people are getting a state grant. So Midge was involved in administering this grant to Endless Summer all the way back in June of 2022. Midge, remember, she's still quitting on May 1st, but this is all the way back in June of 2022, like 3 years ago, she was involved in administering the grant. So we're going to look at two different scenarios. So let's say that the grant Midge helped administer back in June 2022 has expired, and Midge has had no personal and substantial involvement in anything involving Endless Summer since that date. She hasn't talked to any of those people. She hasn't, grant is gone, it's old news, COVID related, totally forgotten, down the memory hole. So even though Midge hasn't been, this grant expired, she's had no involvement with it, she wants to go work for Endless Summer after she quits in May of 2025, she is still going to have to seek that OEIG determination. However, when the OEIG looks back at her personal and substantial involvement with anything involving Endless Summer, they're going to see the last thing she did with them was back in June of 2022. That is not within that year-long look-back period, so she's probably going to be okay. But let's look at a different scenario. So let's say yeah, Midge helped award that grant back in June of 2022, but that thing is ongoing, it is active, and in July of 2024, she was involved in renewing that grant to Endless Summer. So here we are in the timeline. She's still quitting May 1st, 2025. So that year-long look-back period is looking back to May 1st of 2024. Unfortunately for Midge, she helped renew that grant to Endless Summer for prospective employer in July of 2024. So that falls within the look-back period. So the OEIG is going to take a very close look at what Midge did for that grant renewal. Was she personally and substantially involved? Was she recommending anything? Was she saying, yes, let's do that, and let's summer more money? Because even though now we're all the way in May of 2025, Midge and I, depending on how many, what her job duties are, she might not even remember being involved in this grant to Endless Summer. This could come as a total surprise to her, like, oh my gosh. Or she might think, yeah, but that was 10 months ago. Like, that's not going to affect how I treat, that didn't affect them giving me a job. Unfortunately for her, it's still within that 1 year look back period, so it's very likely she will be restricted from accepting that employment.